Questions and comments? The Honourable Minister of Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll take this opportunity to ask the member, since he is here and has unfortunately displayed that he is willing to diminish himself and this House with his language, if he will take this opportunity at this time to apologize and withdraw his comments levied at me yesterday that were completely unparliamentarian, and he has the opportunity to do the right thing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That was a continuation of that point of order. Maybe the honourable member for Leeds Grenville Thousand Islands.
Speaker, if ministers of this government are so ashamed of the praise and accolades that their government get, then they shouldn't be members of that government. They should resign. It's shameful that this government's record is one that they were thanked by Hamas at a time when innocent civilians were attacked in the largest terrorist attack in modern history. That's a part of the legacy of this government. And if any of those ministers are ashamed that Hamas sent them a thank you card, then they should.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, because you have taken the issue under advisement. And I think that the member should be made aware is that the minister he's referring to is of Jewish faith. And given her very background, how much of a personal issue this is, and it was just a simple apology that would put it to rest.
Okay, listen. I ruled earlier when the honourable member brought the issue forward. I said we would go back and look at the answer and come back to the chamber on it. I have the chair. Well, let me finish talking, then I will see the honourable member. I said I would go back and look at it. I allowed the member to ask that question. The member is answering the question that was posed to him. We are still going to go back and look at what's going on. So if the honourable member accepted that I allowed the question to be answered, then everyone should allow the answer to be answered. So I cut the honourable member off before he was finished. So the honourable member for Leeds Grenville Thousand Islands. No, go ahead. The honourable member for Leeds Grenville Thousand Islands, Leader Lakes.
Speaker, since I've been on my feet, you've recognized 3 separate points of order on something that you've already undertaken a point of order on. And so I'm just wondering if the chair can let me know how many more points of order during my time that we're going to hear on something that the minister asked a question, I gave an answer, and Speaker, I'll also note that throughout my speech, the same members persisted in audible interruptions so loud that you heard me responding to them multiple times, but didn't bring the House to order. The knife cuts both ways. Let's deal with the matter at hand, and unless we're going to continue the never-ending point of order a session that you're presiding over.
And I was giving the honourable member for Leeds Grenville Thousand Islands the full opportunity to answer that as he saw fit. I was not the one standing on points of order and stopping it. I allowed that. The honourable in the House, when somebody stands on a point of order, I have to recognize them. It is in the standing orders. So whether or not we like what we're hearing from those points of order, whether they are, I can cut them off when I feel that they are not points of order, in which I did. So I just want to move on to the thing. I'm believing the honourable member for South Shore St. Mark's is standing on a point of order. Go ahead.
Since those were all points of order, I did note that a minute and a half's time was taking off the Q&A period, which had nothing to do with it, and I would ask that the clock on Q&As be restored to 10 minutes for this member.
And I will give the minute and a half back to the honourable member, and we'll go on to the next question. Who wants the next question? L'honorable député de...
The honourable member. I'll make sure. Rimouski Nejet Temisquatali Basque. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's nice to refresh your memory. It's important because in Quebec, people always say, I remember, je me souviens. And last September 16th, the speech that was made by the official opposition said something that worried me. The trust of our representatives in our institutions and particularly the trust that parliamentarians should have in the Auditor General. The Conservative Party, Mr. Speaker, is rather used to accusing everyone and finding people guilty. But when it comes to finding solutions, it's none of their business. It's not really inspiring for people who want to govern in the future. My question for my colleague is simple. His leader has already asked to fire the governor of the Bank of Canada because of inflation, and he undermines now the trust of the Auditor General because of the production of some points. I'd like him to express clearly, does he fully trust the office of the Auditor General in this affair, yes or no?
What we've seen from the Auditor General time and time again after 9 years of these NDP Liberals is that they can't seem to manage the government. We don't think that they could manage the finances of a lemonade stand appropriately. That is, of course, unless it was a Liberal insider who was running the till and jamming their pockets with the nickels of the neighborhood children who tried to buy a glass. Every time, and in this case, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that the Auditor General uncovered as part of the grift and conflicts of interest that they presided over and then tried to sweep under the rug. We kept hearing from the minister responsible that everything was fine and that they had the situation well in hand. But after sustained pressure and the audit that they never wanted to happen, they finally shut down the corrupted organization, but only to shift all of its business to hide it under the auspices of the very government who allowed that corruption to occur. So we thank the Auditor General for her work in helping to expose to Canadians the inability of these Liberals to properly manage the finances of our nation or any of the subsidiaries of the Government of Canada.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the member from Leeds Grenfell, Thousand Islands, as well as all my colleagues who have been speaking on this corruption that has been exposed and that needs to be escalated. I just want to ask that, we're hearing from the Liberals, again, another cover-up, that they're trying to hide behind all other sorts of excuses rather than turn these documents back over to Parliament as being requested and as being ruled as a question of privilege by the Speaker himself. So I asked my colleague if he could talk to the fact that is this just another example of ongoing Liberal corruptions and cover-ups like the WE scandal, like ad scam, like Arrive scam, and why don't they just come forward with the information? Is it because there's people that are actually in Cabinet that are benefiting personally from all of this cash that has gone missing in the hands of Liberal cronies and friends?
Member for Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rita Lakes.
It's a great question from the honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman. And let's take a look at some of what the Auditor General found, and we can draw some conclusions about, of course, whose pockets that money went into. So the Auditor General found that for 10 ineligible projects, it was $58,748,613. 96 cases where conflict of interest policies 90 cases where conflict of interest policies were not followed, $75,974. Its projects without ensuring contribution agreement terms were met, $58 million. 96 cases where another 96 cases where conflict of interest policies were followed was $259 million. Look at the numbers don't lie when you look at the corruption that was allowed to fester under these Liberals. The question that one has to ask themselves is, what was in it for them? What was in it for these Liberals and their friends? Of course, it was their financial betterment, their personal enrichment. This was all about helping Liberal insiders while Canadians have been struggling to feed themselves. It's a shameful legacy, but it's one that the member rightfully pointed out follows on the heels of the $60 million Arrive scam or the $1 billion WE scandal. And, of course, the other cases where the Prime Minister was was found to be outside of the law or broke the law, just like the long history that includes ad scam, of course. And I think that goes to the heart of it. The reason they don't want any sunlight or disinfectant to be applied here is because the last time there was a massive scandal of this scale, it brought down a Liberal government, a tired, corrupt Liberal government. And what's old is new again. It looks like they have this very same concerns about this multiple $100 million scandal.
Comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Government House Leader.
It's, Mr. Speaker, I can honestly say over the years that the member really hasn't changed. His priority has been to really try to amplify the issue of character assassination, and he's got it down to a fine art. Full credit on that account. The issue that I have for the member is, what about, let's say, the Charter of Rights, our Constitution? Does the member not recognize that what they're calling for is for information to be passed directly from here going into the RCMP? So we're going to go out, we're going to get the information, and then we're going to hand it directly over to the RCMP. That's, in fact, what they're asking for. It doesn't matter what the Charter or the RCMP are uncomfortable with the request, the Auditor General is uncomfortable with the request. Doesn't he think that he should at least have some support that goes outside the Conservative Party from agencies like the Auditor General and the RCMP?
Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
I didn't hear any sections of the Charter cited for the Parliamentary Secretary's attempt to obstruct a parliamentary investigation into corruption in his own government. But look, the documents exist and they belong to the Government of Canada. So if he's saying that what's required is a warrant by the police to kick in, the office doors of cabinet ministers and the Prime Minister and parliamentary secretaries to get the truth for Canadians. Look, we don't need to do that because the House has ordered the production of documents. And you talk about what's legal. The legal authority rests with this place. It is unfettered to send for people and papers. The requirement for those papers is very simple. They need to exist and they need to be inside Canada. And if they belong to the government, we can get them. If they belong to a private corporation, we can get them, or a private citizen. Is it in the public interest that we do this? Absolutely. It's hundreds of millions of dollars of corruption that member from Winnipeg has allowed to happen under this Prime Minister, the only one in Canadian history who's been found guilty of breaking the law. And that's the legacy after 9 years of these NDP Liberals. We make no apologies. We make no apologies for getting the truth for Canadians about this government that's allowed the theft of Canadians' tax dollars to help out Liberal insiders. We're going to fight tirelessly to get accountability for Canadians, and we're not going to make any apologies for it.
Comments? The Honourable Member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the really insightful speech of the member from Leeds Grenville, who has worked very hard on this scandal, he mentioned the Auditor General, who took a small sample of the transactions of the insider Liberal board members and found 82% were corrupted. The interesting thing is, for a year and a half, we've had lots and lots of studies, public hearings on this, yet none of the main broadcast media, CTV or CBC, has had one story on it. I'd like the member to comment about the ability or willingness of the media to do its job, which it doesn't seem to be doing, and why might it not be doing the job in covering this Liberal scandal and cover-up?
Well, the minute remaining, the Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Look, we have the Honourable Member from South Shore St. Margaret's who's worked tirelessly to get answers and accountability for Canadians. We owe him a debt of gratitude for that, and he's absolutely right. The numbers that I talk about are just a small sample of cases that they looked at the corrupted $1 billion Green Slush Fund. And, it's interesting he brings up, media. We had the case of CTV this week, which was caught maliciously editing a clip of the Leader of the Opposition to create a fake story about something that wasn't said. you know, that shows something about priorities. You know, we talk about other things that this government spends their money on. That includes, of course, massive media subsidies, and people can draw their conclusions about why heavily subsidized liberal media wouldn't want to call out the corruption that's occurred after 9 years of this government.